Greetings, adventurers. This is Lauren, your guild advisor, and welcome back to this week's installment of cuts and changes for DanMachi Season 4, where I highlight the differences between the original light novel source and the anime adaptation, in addition to providing you extra context for what you see in the show. In episode 21, both Belle and Ryu find comfort in each other as they get a chance to truly rest their bodies after being subjected to the endless danger during their time on floor 37. However, resting alone would not get them out of the White Palace, so once more they step into the perilous dungeon in hopes of escaping the deep floors. There was just one final obstacle in their way, the embodiment of despair itself, Juggernaut. The anime does a solid job with the adaptation this week, but let's go over the finer details in the breakdown. The episode begins with Belle already having lit a fire with his magic, so the two of them can stay warm while they also dry the clothing that was soaked from when Belle collapsed into the water. In the light novel, Belle does not actually light this fire until after the scene when he and Ryu are resting, sharing their body warmth. It's only then that Belle has recovered enough mental energy to cast Firebolt. Ryu also went back into the passage and found monster items, such as the oily hide of the barbarian Belle defeated to use as fuel for the fire. Remember, it's only in the anime adaptation that monsters always turn into ash when defeated. Traditionally in the light novels, monsters will leave behind corpses. They only turn into ash if their magic stone is destroyed. Ryu tries to ease the tension between the two of them in their half-naked states by asking Belle why he came back to the Colosseum. Simply put, Belle did not want anyone else to die. He already thought he lost Wine for good once, and had to witness the deaths of many adventurers during his first encounter with Juggernaut. Ryu then finally tells Belle about the tragedy of Estrella Familia, a story she previously hid from everyone. Belle reaffirms that Estrella Familia sacrificed themselves so Ryu could survive, so she needed to keep on living. Having someone accept her after hearing about her past gave Ryu an impulse to reach out to Belle. She suggests skin-to-skin contact in an effort to keep their body temperatures up. As the two sit clung together, their initial embarrassment disappears, and their heartbeats start to relax as they seem to synchronize. Belle mentions that he now understands what people mean when they talk about the feeling of wanting to protect a woman. In response, Ryu ends up pressing her back more firmly into Belle and apologizes to Seer in her head. There was a whisper in her heart that tempted her to turn around and gaze into Belle's eyes, but she was afraid that such an action would ultimately change their relationship, a change she would not be able to turn back from. The two of them continue to talk and find comfort in each other, as they can safely rest for the first time since being stranded on floor 37. After they wake, Ryu is able to heal her leg just enough so she can move without Belle's support, but she would still need to see a proper healer later, as her magic was not powerful enough to correct the misaligned bones in her leg. Due to the lack of monsters, the spring they discovered was likely a safe zone in the dungeon, but the two of them could not stay there and hope for help to come, as they would likely not be found in an uncharted area. Plus, without any source of food, they would eventually starve to death. They had to continue their adventure through the perilous dungeon once more. As the two navigate through the blue corridor, Belle occasionally stumbles in the light novel because of the lack of blood in his body. Eventually, they reach what seems to be a dead end, but Ryu spots a peculiar quartz-like section of rock which they are able to break through in order to get back onto floor 37 proper. They reach a ring wall with an ashen gray color, indicating that they were at the fourth ring, specifically the soldier zone of floor 37. Between the third and fourth walls. Just before they enter the beast zone, after going through the passage of the fourth wall, the duo feels as if something was off. They've sensed monsters around on the floor, but haven't actually encountered any since coming out of the safe zone. It was almost as if the monsters were afraid. As they finally cleared the fourth wall, Juggernaut is waiting for them, clinging to the wall. Faced with their ultimate enemy, Ryu is visibly struggling as her trauma is kicking back in, while Belle's left arm is also supposed to be shaking, as it was remembering the pain of having to block the Juggernaut's attacks through the Goliath scarf. The anime has Bell point out the Juggernaut's new form was the result of consuming various types of monsters on floor 37. Its new arm was made from skull sheep, the flesh was from barbarians, the scales on its tail were from lizardmen, and the bones were from Spartoi. One thing cut from the novels is that there were chunks of obsidian soldier monsters reinforcing its cracked magic reflection shell. The Juggernaut was truly a chimera. Remember that monsters that eat magic stones to become stronger are called enhanced species. The Moss Huge and the Xenos are examples of this. However, this Juggernaut is even more irregular. Rather than simply consuming magic stones, the Juggernaut ate monsters whole and incorporated them into its own body. In the novel, there's even mention of steam and liquid coming off of its new body parts, giving the appearance that the Juggernaut's body was trying to reject its new appendages, adding to its disturbing and unnatural appearance. As Bell fights Juggernaut, he notices that it appears to be slower than before, since he did manage to break a reverse knee joint the last time they fought. However, the Juggernaut was now making up for its hampered mobility by using the new abilities granted to it by its new body. It was assaulting Bell with a combination of normal attacks and also waves of bone spikes, an ability from the Skull Sheep. As the battle unfolds, Ryu continues to struggle with her trauma, but she is able to fight through it in order to push Bell out of harm's way when Juggernaut tries to crush him. This specific sequence does not happen in the novel, but it is a good addition as it shows Ryu pushing past her trauma in an effort to save Bell. As the two run from Juggernaut, it smashes its right arm into the ground, creating cracks that chase Bell and Ryu, which then explode underneath them in the form of giant bone spikes. Ryu mentions that this was very similar to an attack used by the floor boss of floor 37, Udeus. This is the monster Rex that a level 5 Eyes soloed to rank up to level 6. One thing to note though is that this does not exactly imply that Juggernaut defeated Udeus to acquire this ability. Since Juggernaut spawned in the water capital, the dungeon gave it strength to defeat the threats on floor 27. Udeus, a floor boss spawning on floor 37, is still more powerful, plus much more durable than a Juggernaut which sacrifices all its defense for offensive power. Also, keep in mind that Juggernaut was fighting Bell and Ryu on the outskirts of floor 37, whereas the Udeus would have been located in the very center of the floor. There's simply not enough time for Juggernaut to navigate the floor as big as Arario, attempt to defeat Udeus in the center, and then come all the way back to the outskirts of the floor. The novel also attempts to give a voice to the Juggernaut in order to showcase its thoughts. The monster was motivated by how its prey refused to die. It was fixated solely on finally crushing Bell and Ryu. Bell ends up being punctured in the stomach, and it quickly acts to cauterize his wound by shooting Firebolt onto his body. He could not afford to lose any more blood, so he fights through the excruciating pain. Directly after this, the anime skips a sequence where Bell continues to shoot Firebolt at the ground to create the smokescreen, followed by another Firebolt directed at Juggernaut to distract it, while he and Ryu try to get away. Personally, I do not mind this change, as one could reason that Bell is simply too injured between all the blood loss and pain from cauterizing his wound to do anything. Ryu ends up noticing a side passage and dives into it with Bell, and Juggernaut is not able to reach them. The monsters that were hiding from Juggernaut stand in Ryu and Bell's way, but they are taken out by the Juggernaut in its attempt to reach Bell and Ryu. Ultimately, the Juggernaut gives up on the pair for the time being, likely waiting for them to make their next move. After Juggernaut leaves, the novel describes the scene with Bell and Ryu as appearing like a murder scene, as the guts and blood of the monsters that Juggernaut took out painted the area red. Naturally, the anime does not show this because it is staying consistent with the anime rule of monsters always turning to ash when defeated. Ryu tries to heal Bell, but her magic cannot do anything about his blood loss. She feels as if their luck has finally run out. Bell regains consciousness, and Ryu tells him that Juggernaut is gone. Thus the pair begins to lie to each other, stating that they'll be able to go back home, even though both are painfully aware that the Juggernaut was still waiting. Believing that they are doomed, Ryu is able to be honest with herself and ask Bell to hold her. For just this one moment, she was the closest person to Bell in the entire world. At the very least, she is able to find comfort in the arms of someone during what seemed to be the final moments of her life. The anime has Ryu, seemingly mouthed a few inaudible words during this scene, but this is not mentioned in the novel. However, this might be foreshadowing future dialogue, so I'll save that discussion for the finale. In the end, Ryu chooses to rest, choosing to believe in their lies of security. However, Bell had plans that differed from accepting death. Unlike Ryu, he had not yet given up on returning alive. Thus, with his entire body screaming out in pain, Bell vows to protect his elf companion. The beginning of this episode provided a much-needed breather for both Bell and Ryu, who both have been physically and mentally drained from the constant fighting and deadly environment of Floor 37. The anime did a great job at adapting these intimate moments while keeping the tone mature overall. I enjoyed the contrast between Bell's hopeful narration as the pair makes their way to the fourth wall, and Juggernaut's eventual appearance, breaking through their hope as a symbol of despair. I thought the reveal of Juggernaut's new form and abilities was done well, as the adaptation made sure to highlight the different monsters it incorporated into its body, and how the Juggernaut, while slower, was still a fearsome and deadly foe. We'll just have to see how our persistent duo fares next week. This week's Danmachi side story features a past conversation between the top members of Estrella Familia as they talk about their hopes for Ryu. It does have some references to the Estrella Record event story, so like last week, it'll help if you're familiar with the story. I'll leave links to both the side story as well as Estrella Record in the video description. We have just one more episode left in Season 4, and if it has a similar level of quality as Episode 20, it'll be an incredible and emotional finale. I truly hope the team at JC staff has saved their best for last, because it'll be an ending to remember. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more DanMachi content, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Remember to follow me on my socials, and this is Lauren, your guild advisor, signing out.